Ronan.
All right, welcome to Juice in the Morning. It is a weekly podcast where Shane and I bullshit a little bit, but this time we actually have a guest with us. He is a conspiracy theory enthusiast, health and performance coach, and Arena Football League. How's it going, Collin?
Couldn't be better.
Thanks for his name is Collin Taylor. I'm sorry, I should have said Collin Taylor and then all of those things. So, yeah, the sound effect. But thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for coming on and doing the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Shane and I have talked about doing this for a while, so I'm glad we can finally get on and go back and forth, talk about some good things. Like you had mentioned, you've already mentioned a few things that I'm pretty excited to talk about. And
I was
jump out of my seat here.
Pleasantly surprised when we had talked, when I first started doing the show about him coming on. He's like, "Oh, I'll hit you up during the holidays," and I was like, "Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm not saying that, but like, you know what I mean. People say shit, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then like he did, and now here he is. So we made it happen.
One of the things that I do appreciate almost to a level that I can't really explain is you actually getting people to come on the show, because then I'm not doing all of the work all the time. If you don't
know by now, I care about this shit. All right? I'm pretty ride or die when it comes to Juice in the Morning now.
I appreciate it, man. And then the thing that I wanted to say with that is we are getting more reviews and ratings on Apple Podcasts, which is literally the main place that everybody downloads and listens to their podcasts. Some people use other apps and stuff like that, and we are on almost all the apps and everything that you can think of. But, you know, it's always nice to get something from somebody. So this is the review that we just got, and the title is Solid Podcast. That's okay. That's average. I like that.
Solid.
Recently discovered Juice in the Morning and found it quite enjoyable. Smooth conversations, good content, awesome chemistry, and they don't share one mic. All signs of a great podcast. Check it out. Keep up the good work. So that was from Casey since 77.
My favorite thing about that review is that it's by, I'm pretty sure, someone that neither of us know.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is based off of people we know listening, and it's nice to have like an outside point of view of someone that obviously doesn't know either of us and isn't like forced into listening to the podcast or any of that kind of thing. So it's nice to hear from someone I have no idea. So thanks, Casey.
Since 77.
I was going to say random numbers.
No, it's one of those things that, you know, I've been very clear and upfront about the podcast. Like, I do this because I want to be famous. Like, I know Shane doesn't do it because he wants to be famous, but that's what I want. That's what I'm going for.
I'm not saying I don't want to be famous. It's just not my sole purpose of doing this. I really just enjoy, like, I listen to so much podcasts in my free time, so just getting on here and being able to do this and like do something that I see people that I look up to do is like super like fulfilling for me. I enjoy it a lot.
Oh yeah. So. And you know, we're dangerously close to 100 episodes. So I'm only about 12 or something like that. Yeah, you got a way to go.
Yeah, so I'm not really wearing the badge of 100, but you're
still a part of it.
It's exciting for you.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's the thing that I also wanted to say is, like, I know you guys say that you listen to podcasts and you've done some before or done radio shows before. It's crazy to think that we're getting ready to get to 100, because some of those biggest ones, like Joe Rogan's podcast and like Adam Carolla's podcast, they're like into the thousands of episodes.
Yeah, I think Joe Rogan's like 1,300 or around that area somewhere. Yeah. So that's insane to think.
And I'm hoping that by continuing to do it, we're eventually going to get to those things like the video and the interviews that are just like with people that, for example, like Neil deGrasse Tyson was on Adam Carolla's podcast. Like if I got that guy to talk to me about, you know, some of these like theories that we have, like that would blow my mind. I would love it.
Yeah.
And that kind of like is one of those things that I know that Collin is thinks about a lot, and that's what we kind of talked about prior to the podcast, was him sharing some conspiracy theories and his thoughts on them. And then I shared with him simulation theory, a video that I found on YouTube that does have Neil deGrasse Tyson in it. So I just want to kind of get from you the very like what you think and how those things kind of relate to you.
So, you know, let me say, first of all, sorry I'm not Neil deGrasse Tyson, but a very close
second. It was like on the list, it was like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Collin Taylor.
He's 1A. If I could be 1B, then that feels good. But no,
I love it.
That's so funny that we were, you know, just the idea of conspiracy theories. And, you know, I don't know when you want to kind of dive into these, but my idea about that whole thing is kind of once I figured out one thing, or I found out one thing. I did my own research that proved what I had learned my entire life. People have been telling you to do this certain thing for your entire life, right? And this is the only way to do it. And once I kind of experimented and realized that was wrong.
Yeah. What was it that you were talking about?
Yeah. So fasting.
Yeah.
Basically is where the whole thing started with me. In 2012, I was working at a gym in Iowa, in Des Moines, Iowa, and we had a 10-week, weight loss challenge. It was a big group fitness boot camp type gym, and I didn't want to do this 10-week weight loss challenge because I didn't, want to lose any weight, but I wanted to do something that would challenge me, both mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And so I started doing some research and figured out, what I was going to do, and I decided to do this 10-week, basically fasting challenge where I would intermittent fast for 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Saturday I would basically, what do they call it? Refill day. It was just like beer and college football and wings,
right? Hell yeah.
Just to keep my sanity. And then I would do a 24-hour fast on Sundays.
Oh wow.
And that's just that's how I kind of learned about it. And so I did it for 10 weeks straight. And I tested all my strength numbers before that 10 weeks, my weight, my body fat percentage, all that kind of stuff. Came back after 10 weeks, had lost 4%, went from 12% to 8% body fat. All my lifts went up. Physically, I could see a big difference, and then my weight stayed the same. So I was like, there's got to be something.
Oh, yeah.
There's got to be something about this, because you'd just been told for your entire life, eat this many times and do this and do this.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And so I started then to begin to think what else have I been lied to about?
Exactly.
And so that's kind of where my love for conspiracy theories came.
I think just with theories in general, it's for me, it's something that's it's entertaining to sit here and think about and discuss the possibilities of these things being, accurate, or, the possibility of it not being accurate, and the whole just surrounding, why would people want to keep this a secret, or why wouldn't they, why would we be able to know about it if it's such a closely guarded secret?
Well, there's also so many things that are beat into your head over, like you were saying, over and over again. And you're taught to think this way, but if you stop and put just an inkling of common sense into what you're looking at, then you can tell that it's not foolproof. Perfect example is the food pyramid. We're talking about fasting, so
right.
The food pyramid is complete bullshit. If you really look at what's on there, and this is off a 2,000 calorie whatever, that's just not today with the food, all that stuff that comes out of bread and all that crap. It's not as healthy as one might think. And all it took for me to realize that was stop, look at, and this can be, you can plug this in with anything. Stop and look wow, it's not there's holes in this. What you're trying to sell me here.
And what's insane about the food pyramid was it was created by people that were paying scientists because they were hey, we need to sell more of our grain-based foods, so help us make sure that people eat a lot of grains and a lot of bread and a lot of carbs and things like that, because that's what we're selling. And it was back before science was a little bit more taken more seriously, and it's basically you can tie it a lot together just with money, and with the fact that, for example, advertising. If you ever watched Mad Men, you used to be able to say whatever you wanted to get somebody to buy your product, and then they decided to make that illegal to be able to do whatever you want on there.
I've also seen conspiracies about people, government officials or whoever, the man, whatever you want to call it, basically paying off FDA or the people that approve what gets put on the bottle and what's bad for you, what's good for you. And 2009 survey of sugar says that blah, blah, blah. So the people that make those kind of things are paid off by higher government officials, or made to do this, so that as consumers, people buy certain things and are oh, that's not bad for you, so I'll go buy what said thing, whatever.
Now everything says organic or homegrown or something.
Cage free, which cage free and what is it? Organic and that kind of stuff. I do believe in, but
but I'm just saying that there are things that are said to be that, and they're not actually that. They're just putting it on their label.
The antibiotic thing freaks me out, when you're just pumping an animal full of antibiotics, and then they're all right, let's chop it up and feed it to a bunch of people.
So with fasting, I tried that. It was I found a an article from Corey Gregory. He's one of the kind of a fitness guy. Like he's really big. I met him actually at the Arnold and got a clip of me talking to him at the Arnold and made a podcast out of my trip to the Arnold. It was really shitty because I was not very good at it at the time, but it was really fun and it was cool to have him on and actually like answer a question. He it was pretty motivational. It was only like a minute or two long, but it was cool to actually be able to talk to him. But anyways, he has like what he calls anabolic fasting, and it's basically anabolic fasting, I think is what it is. Yep. And I tried to do that. It's just the way work is for me. Like I can't get away from work to actually eat in my time frame that I'm supposed to eat.
Excuses.
It is an excuse, but like legit, like I'll go to work sometimes and I'll be able to not leave the production area for 8 to 10 hours to go back and get food. And that's like in that window that you're supposed to eat. So I've tried it, and I think it's something that I could do if I just had the availability, I guess.
Also, I was going to say, Collin will tell you that there's different forms of fasting.
Yeah.
So those 10 to 8 hours, you could work that into your schedule to where that's the time where you're fasting.
Yeah.
And then when you get off production line, then that's when you eat. Yeah. And it's all based off of, as long as you're like, what he does is an 8-hour feeding time. So like he'll plan it accordingly. So the time that he's so if you're on production line for that long or whatever you said, then you just eat before it. As long as you're not eating as long as you're only eating for those 8 hours.
The issue is like the flipping of the schedule too. One week I'm working super early, one week I'm working super late. So like if I planned for this time frame to be it, but no, that is excuses, and I am making excuses. But so
it's kind of the pot calling the kettle. Like I'm the last person that should be giving you shit for this.
But so like what benefits have you gotten from it so far?
Yeah, besides the fact that it makes my life easier.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, and it kind of started where I was coaching at this gym. I would get up at 4:18 every morning. Right now I would be into the gym by 5. And when I was eating, I had to, I had to run downstairs. I had to start the stove and then run upstairs and brush and then do, and as soon as I stopped eating in the morning, things got so much easier. Yeah. Right. And I realized I wasn't totally relying on, eating this certain amount of stuff at this time. Like I said, the idea at its very base level was because I wanted something to challenge myself. Right. And so it's kind of, everybody's got their different whys for why they do things, and the people who I've talked to a lot about it, they ask me about the benefits and how to do it and all this stuff. And I can talk about that for days. Yeah. But like at the end of the day, if you're hungry and you're like, man, I'm fasting because CT told me to fast. Well, I might as well just eat. Right. Yeah. But if you're doing it because you've done research and you've read about it and you see what the health benefits are, then it's way easier to survive these and it's really not tough at all. We talked, Shane had mentioned I'll eat noon to 8 or I'll eat 2 to 10 or whatever. And that's all. That's because that's what works for me. Yeah. Like you said, it'd be tough, very tough.
Just with the flipping of the schedule. Like I'll eventually get past that and I'll have a better.
And what I was saying last night is the hardest part for me when I have tried the fasting was, and you gave me a lot of good insight on this, was like once I begin to eat, then I'm like starving. But when I wake up in the morning and I go for that run or I lift or whatever, that I feel great. Like if you've ever worked out or ran or anything on a fast, you just have all this energy because you're not weighed down by whatever you just ate or anything. So for me, I was kind of curious as to I want to hear from you what exactly happens to your body when you begin to fast, or like, so what actually changes in your body when you start going on a fasting program. And you were talking to me last night about growth hormones and that kind of stuff, and kind of maybe go into that a little bit. Yeah.
So Shane and I got to catch up last night over a couple beers and talk about fasting. So he's a little further along in the conversation than some of the listeners maybe. But so basically what the goal is you're trying to burn fat as fuel instead of sugar / food as fuel. And the old theory, the calories in versus calories out, whole thing has been debunked over and over and proven that is completely wrong. Yeah. Because how am I supposed to know, okay, today I was in a car for 5 hours driving back to Cleveland, but then I got out and I ran down the street and I came back. Okay, how many calories out did I have compared to, the iced coffee that I bought? So that's good. It doesn't make sense. You can't keep up with something like that. But basically you are getting to the point where your body is burning fat for fuel. right? The fat stores that you have for fuel, as opposed to sugar for fuel. And what that does is, you know, every time you eat, your insulin is raised. The sugar from the food spikes your insulin. People who have issues with that, you know, insulin resistance, are given the term they now have type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly what that is. They are insulin resistant. So doctors say, okay, I'm going to give them more insulin, spike those, and then more, and then more, and you know, and then their body is all out of whack. All they have to do is just stop eating, and it will lower their insulin levels, and then they'll be able to kind of have more control over it.
One of my favorite things that you said last night that I'm going to completely butcher, and then I'm going to let you tell it right. Sure. You said something about maybe someone walking from New York to Florida and doing that and not needing any kind of, like, the fuel that they are using is completely from their fat in their body. And I'm going to let you take it away and say it right.
Yeah, that was excellent. So people freak out, right? The idea is like, well, I'm not, okay, I can't eat these 4 hours. How am I going to survive? You know, what I point out all the time now with
people,
some of my buddies.
Starving.
I'm starving to death. You're gonna die? Oh my gosh! You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're right, because the last like 2,000 years that human beings have been on this possibly flat planet, there weren't always times where they were eating all the time. You know what I mean? It's like there weren't always times where, King Leonidas in 300, he had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and 2 snacks, and like, this dude is a badass, and it's because.
He did eat an apple at one point.
He did have an apple at one
point. And he was probably the coolest looking eating of an apple.
And they dined in hell. Tonight we dine in hell.
But he was never, I'm going to die. I'm so hungry. Like, don't do that. Right? Yeah. Like, people don't say, I'm starving to death. I'm going to die. So the idea, what that study was, the average human being has enough body fat to get themselves from, if they walked from New York, they could go all the way to Jacksonville, Florida, walking on body fat alone.
Jesus.
Without needing food.
That's crazy.
And it's a crazy idea, right? So anytime now that I'm thinking, oh, I'm hungry, man, I'm starving, I think like, oh, no, I'm not. Yeah. Right? I have enough body fat to be able to take myself wherever I need to, whenever I need to. My big interest in it now that I've spent, about 5 years or so messing with it is how it affects performance athletes. Yeah, right? So you hear a lot of times, bodybuilders do it all the time, because they like the effects of how their body looks, and it does make your body look a certain way. And I've noticed that, and I've obviously liked that part of it, because it's great. Who wouldn't like that? But what it really does best for you is hormonally, what it does inside, and that's we began to talk about that, kind of what it does for you. But with that being said, the bodybuilders talk about it. Models, people who have to be aesthetic, talk about it. Actors who are getting ready for roles have to talk about it. And they say it really helps. But like, what does it do for the performance athlete, the fast twitch athlete, the professional football player? So that's kind of where I'm at now with my research. And I say research. I use that very loosely. I just basically do experiments on myself, see how I feel, and then go from there. And so what I started doing this year was
you're a scientist, basically.
Yeah, well, basically,
essentially a
scientist. Yeah. And so what I started.
Why are you wearing
that
lab coat? Like,
I didn't expect you to bring that to the show. I would usually always start eating during the season before practice. Right, I would eat before practice, then I would have to stop eating later. Stop eating earlier in the day. So that was tough. So this year I thought, okay, what if I just fast during practice, right? And I would tell people, and you get to practice, and people are eating bagels and breakfast sandwiches and cereal and all this stuff, and people finally got, what, dude, I never see you eat breakfast. Oh, and I love breakfast. I'm just eat it later. Yeah, right, is the thing. And so I felt I had 2 or 3 of my teammates doing it with me. And the days that we would eat before practice, you'd go into practice and we'd be tired. We'd feel slow, especially cognitively. We weren't super sharp. We'd go there into practice days where we were fasting in the morning, felt excellent. Yeah. And it just, and that's where we'll use the word again, research. Started. I said, I feel way better practicing on an empty stomach and fasted than I do when I'm fed. Yeah. Right. And so listen, I'm for people who don't know me, I'm 6'1", 200 pounds. I'm not a 4'3" guy, right? You know, I'm not 6'10". Mm-hmm. So it's like if I can do anything to get an advantage on the opponent, I'm going to do that. And if it's as easy as not eating before practice because they're slower mentally and physically because they haven't eaten, then great, I'm going to take full advantage of that. Right. So I'm interested to see going into a game fasted how something like that would be. But so that's kind of like,
so is that the next phase?
Well, it's tough because I've had success eating and playing. You know, it's just like so you know, kind of why screw up a good thing, and you know that's the time you have to be on. Right, once a week. 12 times, 16 times a year you have to be on. I'm not willing right now
to risk that.
One bad day.
If it ain't broke, you don't need to fix it. I was trying to say that as hillbilly as possible.
No, and another thing that I just wanted to throw out there is I took 90 days off of drinking one time just to see if I could do it and see if it was like something that I could handle. And
I can't take 90 minutes. I just had a drink on the way here.
So I did that, and like you would be surprised. I think I lost like 17 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, honestly, the time that
I didn't change anything else.
Nothing else.
I mean, that'll do it. Honestly, the times I've taken off, I haven't in a while done a stint that long.
I'm not going to say that I'm not going to confirm or deny that it was like mandated that I take those 90 days off.
Government or by the wife, or which are the same thing, right?
Hey, I'm just leaving it out there. It's a mystery. It's a mystery.
But I like the times I've taken a week off from drinking, I feel like not necessarily I've lost all this weight or anything, but I feel way better. Yeah. Which sucks, man, because you can't have your cake and you can't eat it too. Exactly. Like it's nice to drink and have fun. But I think at some point in my life down the road, maybe in the next 10 years, I'm going to like shy away from drinking. And I always thought to myself, like, why did people just say like, I don't drink? You know, there's those people out there and they're usually like older people. And I think it's because you just get to a point in your life where like, I don't necessarily feel like feeling like this anymore. And I know that I feel better without alcohol and my body runs on all cylinders or whatever. And if you just have a halfway decent diet, just halfway decent, and you don't drink, I feel like 1,000 times better. So that's just proof enough for me that, you know, like maybe take a here to the next. I've still got some drinking to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I love beer too much, so I'm not going to give that up. But you also mentioned the flat Earth thing when you were talking about this. So what are the things that you've thought about that or researched and seen on that?
Yeah, so that was one of the...
You kind of touched on it, so I wanted to go back to it.
Hashtag woke.
Exactly.
And that's it, you know, and it's just, that is funny. Shane and I have joked about too. Everybody talks about being woke and you're woke. And there was a guy, I was on a movie set a couple weeks ago, and his shirt said "Stay woke." And I said, that's awesome. I said, bro, your shirt says "Stay woke," but you still think this is a globe, like spinning Earth that you're living on?
Yeah.
And he was like, "What are you talking about? You are a crazy
You bombarded him with...
and I'm like...
He was not ready for that. He's like... He went home, he's like, I'm not wearing this shit again.
He's like, I definitely don't stay woke.
Yeah, I'm not wearing this shirt.
Yeah, don't wear a stay woke shirt and not have any idea about theories and, you know, what and possibilities.
You should have just walked up and been like, chemtrails?
Yeah.
And just like shook your head like, and he'd been like, what? What just happened?
This guy's a crazy person. I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, so that was another one, like, and that is the most fun conspiracy theory, because and it's awesome to talk about at bars. And I'll actually tell a quick story about last time I was home at a bar talking about the flat Earth, but that is something people are so passionate about, right? Because it's the first thing you learn, right? Is that the Earth you live on is a globe, and it's spinning, and thousands and thousands of miles per hour. For some reason, we can still just stand here and not move, but that's neither here nor there. But it's just so fun to talk about because people get so angry. Oh yeah, and so that's one of the reasons why I enjoy the conversation. Yeah. And what had happened, my buddy and I, we got a good buddy of mine, Drew, who lives here back at home, and we talk about this stuff all the time. We're at a bar a couple weeks ago, just tossing ideas back and forth of possibilities and what might be going on. And this guy, this gentleman, probably mid-50s, pokes my shoulder and he said, I'm sorry, guys, are you saying that the Earth might possibly be flat? And I said, I'm not saying that I know it's flat. I'm just saying I don't know if it's round.
There you go.
And he said,
at least being open to it.
Yeah, he said, you guys are, and because my parents will listen to this, so I'll change the words, but you are effing retarded.
Jesus.
And he got mad, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, sir. You know what?
That's an aggressive thing to say to somebody.
Right? And well, they want to argue about it. They don't want to say anything about research. They just want to argue about it. So I said, what proof? He said, I've traveled all over the world. And I said, oh, that's awesome. So you've seen the curvature of the Earth, right? Mm-hmm. You've seen it. He said, I'm not an effing astronaut.
This guy is intense.
I said, so you haven't seen the curve. You don't have to see it to. And then this guy ended up causing such a scene, he got kicked out of the bar.
Jesus.
And I was just, my buddy Drew and I were just sitting there like, man.
Can I also point out that I'm watching my language because of your mom as well? I wait on his mom and his dad all the time, and they're very nice people. Like, I love waiting on them. They're very nice. And, you know, I'm just watching my voice or my words and maybe not cussing as much because I want to do good by them. You know?
Shout out to mom and dad.
They're good people. So.
Well, the first question that I wanted to have for you, and I'm posing it to both of you guys actually for the flat earth thing, is what reason would we want to hide this from people? Like, why would we want to hide the fact that it was flat? Because to me, I don't see any benefit or negative to just saying this is what it is. So
there are kind of deep responses, right? Mm-hmm. And there are easier responses.
Yeah.
And so
we can get as deep as you guys want.
Yeah. So one that I really like is just the idea that if the Earth were flat, it would mean someone, a higher being, would have had to create it the way it is and the way it works, right? So it's very pro-religion, and that's something that people don't want to hear all the time. So it would be very easy to just say, okay, this is how it happened, so believe this happened, and then so you can believe in this guy or this God or this person or this. You can believe all of these things, do whatever you want, right? Because the Earth is this globe. Mm-hmm. But if it's flat, no, it had to be created by a person. Yeah. And so that's one of the coolest ones that I've heard, because then that brings up other total different topics. But also you start to think, another one a buddy of mine talks about is just the fact that if people were to know that it was flat, then they would start to awaken to other things, right?
Well, and that's what we've talked about on the podcast before is like, if we confirm or deny a theory, then we have to start confirming or denying all theories,
right? Because
we have to figure it out. We have to find out.
So my thing with the flat earth, and mine is not mine is just that I think a lot of conspiracy theorists, people that are way more open-minded even to an extreme that we are, people like to get behind something, you know what I mean? People like to be a part of something and argue something. And I think that a lot of people, in the grand scheme of things, the whole flat earth thing is a very small community. Yeah. It just gets a lot of like shine because they're telling us the earth is flat. Mm-hmm. So I think in the grand scheme of things, there's a small group of people that literally think the earth is flat. I'm not saying small. I mean, it's still thousands of people, but when you're talking about the whole world and grand scheme, that's not a lot of people. Yeah. So I think it's just something people can get behind and kind of like, either I think a lot of people are just not smart enough to realize that they're wrong. And then there's people that literally believe that, they just want to get behind it and they believe in that. But, and then, like you said, a lot of it's just like, gods and things are created this way. Like you said, there's a very deep meaning and then there's very easy, I guarantee you a lot of it is just people out there that are just like, oh, sounds legit to me. I'll get behind that. But what I was going to say is we talked about this last night and I brought it up on my phone. This guy, his name is Mad Mike Hughes.
I read this yesterday.
And he's a limo driver, and he's built a rocket before, but he's building a rocket to prove that the Earth is flat, and he's going to launch himself into space. And I'll just read a little bit of this. A man who believes the Earth is flat and was ready to launch himself from a rocket in California on Saturday afternoon has canceled his plans, at least for now. So he says at the bottom of this, he basically said he's going to try next week again. So there's actually footage of his first rocket thing, and he went up in the air. It didn't seem like he went very high.
Yeah.
And then he had to go to the hospital
He
for a couple of
sustained
days.
some injuries.
Yeah. So it says not having the required federal permits plus mechanical problems with his motorhome / rocket launcher forced self-taught rocket scientist Mad Mike Hughes to put his experiment on a hold. And I'll just read this last little thing.
Did you see the quote of his about science? That's the part that you should read.
Okay, it's been very disappointing, he said. Hughes, no, I don't see.
It's in there somewhere, but basically he's like,
hold on. The Bureau of Land Management told me they would not allow me to do the event, at least not at the location. Hughes said in the YouTube announcement, amid international attention over his plans to launch into the Atmos flat. Instead of the atmosphere, it's Atmos flat.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, man. Hughes is a 61-year-old limo driver who has spent the last few years building a steam-powered rocket out of salvaged parts in his garage.
Yeah.
His project has cost him $20,000, which includes Rust-Oleum paint to fancy it up and a motorhome he bought on Craigslist that is converted into a ramp.
There you go.
Can I just say, this is not the hero we deserve.
Yeah.
This is the hero that we need.
Yeah. Like you said last night, not all heroes wear capes.
Not all heroes wear capes. And this guy
but
is
Mad
a
Mike
hero.
definitely wears a cape.
I get all my facts from most limo drivers. So
Every time I'm in an Uber, I get out, I'm like, man, that was the most interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's if we're not listening to Saudi Arabian music, we're talking about flat Earth. That's one or the other.
Either one. All these guys are awake.
Woke.
Like I said, he did say something in there about like science and that he doesn't necessarily need to believe in science to be able to build a rocket. And he's like, I know something about rocketry and stuff like that, but I don't need to know about science to know that I can launch myself up into the air.
Science literally has everything to do with what you're doing, sir.
So with the flat Earth thing, it kind of is what I sent to you through Facebook, which was the simulation theory, and I kind of like gave Shane a little bit info like before we started the show what simulation theory is. Did you end up getting to watch the video?
Unfortunately, I didn't, and I was thinking that on the way over here. I will tell you, I'm way behind it already.
Yeah.
Like I'm already into the idea.
This can get deep.
Forward to
like
hearing about this.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the one I already talked about. He was part of the video, and it was called Star Talk, is his like TV show that he does. I don't know what channel he does it on, but apparently he gets celebrities on and talks to them about the cosmos and like space and like physics and things like that. And somebody sent him in a viewer question about what his thoughts were on simulation theory, and he said, in classic Neil deGrasse Tyson way, he blows your mind with what he's saying about it, but it kind of breaks down to the smallest bits of like, when we create a video game, for example, Mario Brothers, Mario in that game believes that he is real. Like he believes that he's Mario and that he is doing these things and that he is an autonomous being, even though we are actually controlling him. And he was like, what's to say that we are not the autonomous being created by a higher power than us that is basically just watching how this stuff plays out. And he's like, when that person gets bored, that's why we get things shaken up, for example, with conspiracy theories,
hurricanes,
tsunamis, with Donald Trump getting elected president. Not saying that that's I'm not for or against, I'm not going to get into that debate with regards to him, but how big of a deal was it that he did get elected? I mean, it's become like a huge thing.
Yeah.
And, Neil deGrasse Tyson broke it down, and it seems to me like something that is quite plausible. And then, another thing they brought up at some point in the show is, it's really intense, deep, but it's like basically they were saying that you would need a planet-sized computer with our the computing power that we're working with in this math problem, a planet-sized computer to run the amount of calculations it would take to basically from human existence, like the first humans till now. If you were to simulate everything up until now, you would need that size of a computer, and then also that size of that computer could run all of the computational energy that your brain creates for all that. Like I think they said 700 or no, 7 billion. No, 7 billion is not right. Basically, however many people have existed, you'd need that kind of computing power to do it. And they're like, so what's to say with how large our universe is that doesn't exist, that there is like a giant planet that is like literally the computer that is running everything that we see.
So automatically, I relate everything to movies.
Yeah.
So I think of the Truman Show for one, which is not necessarily the same like aspect of a higher being of just kind of like controlling us from space or whatever you want to think of. But then I also think of like there's like some scenes in Men in Black where like there's like that whole civilization that's living in the locker.
Yep.
So I think of kind of stuff like that. And then they did this like weird little thing at the end where they're showing the credits, but they're also showing like us
zooming
underneath of a fingernail of another being, and like that's very possible. That I mean, to me, that makes sense. Like you just don't know. Like I mean, the vastness of what could actually be out there in space, because we're just in our what is it called, the
like our universe. Is that what?
Yeah, I guess, right. Just that there's multiple universes.
Yeah.
And we've only been able to extend so far.
Well, there's one universe, multiple galaxies.
Galaxies, thank you. The galaxy is the word I was looking for. But so we're in all these different galaxies, and we're only able to extend so far, and we're able to even see things often in the distance that we know that they're there, but we don't necessarily know what's on them or what they are, or they're just a shape or a weird color. And it's just like, if that's happening, there's things out there moving that are that close, and there's multiple galaxies. I mean, I've heard the statistic before. I can't repeat it, obviously, but the amount of galaxies, there is as many stars as there is galaxies, and all that's just insane.
We're so
me.
small.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Just
we never really think about that. But
yeah, I mean, if
nothing.
you really want some like, when you know, like all these people I see that there's like the world revolves around them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As long as it's okay with them, everything's good in the world.
Yeah.
You're such a small inkling of just Earth existence, let alone the existence of the entire
universe.
Yeah. Like if you want to to get poked down a notch, like that's, you just sit in your bed at night when you're trying to fall asleep and think of, wow, I'm not shit.
It's completely insignificant.
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry,
Well,
Mom.
the simulation thing also, like another part of it is you know, if you heard of the Mandela effect. So like basically when we remember something as a collective whole this way, but then when we, like for example, the Berenstain Bears or Berenstain Bears, basically the way it's spelled is Berenstain, but I remember as a kid calling it the Berenstain Bears,
Samesies.
and reading the books and like it always being pronounced Berenstain Bears, and then somebody posted an article on the internet and said it's Berenstain. It's not just that. Mandela, the reason it's called the Mandela effect is a collective whole of us remember, or I don't remember because I don't think I was old enough, but remember Mandela dying in prison. Like there was a news article saying he's died in prison, you know, blah, blah. But then what actually happened, or what everybody like knows to be true, is he was released from prison, like, and to amid much fanfare and like awesome stuff for him, you know, but it's everybody remembering it one way. And then it's like, so what it relates to with the simulation theory is that's a glitch, like that somebody hasn't like worked out, or they wanted to change something because they wanted to go this way. And that's just like one of the parts of this possibly being a simulation theory, that's just like a hiccup in the simulation.
Right. Jesus. That's a little much to take in.
Well, just like what in the Matrix, right? When they see deja vu.
Yep.
Yes.
That's a glitch.
So
in the
there's
Matrix.
all
That's
these
that is.
different like avenues you can take for existence. Like there's you know, the multiple galaxies thing. There's the Matrix. Like I relate a lot with that because it kind of blew my mind even watching it. When I was younger, I didn't understand it. I was like, oh, red pill, blue pill, whatever. And then now I'm just like, holy shit. Like that's like a way more whoever made that movie is just like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, so that's impressive to me. There's like, and you can take, like I said, all these different avenues of how things come into existence, why things are the way they are, like the Truman Show. Like I know everyone's has had that thought in their mind before. Like, what if I'm just like the only real thing, and everything around me is just kind of like people watching me or seeing how I react to things, or like, you know,
I did tell
it's
you
just one big joke. Like, you know what I mean? I think everyone's had that feeling before. But
did I tell you the crazy thoughts that I've had like about that kind of stuff. Like I've thought, because people have always said that crazy people don't know they're crazy. So I've always wondered, like, what if I'm completely insane and I'm just sitting in a room imagining everything that's happening right now, and then it's not actually going on. That's one thing. Then my second thing, this is a theory that I have that is kind of tied into the simulation theory, is I feel that we are all like mentally connected in some way or another. And at times I've thought that
some people more than others.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes, like, for example, I had a theory when I was a really little kid that when I had dreams, I was actually seeing other people's like thoughts and memories of what was like what they were doing.
Yeah.
And that's why when I have dreams, they don't relate sometimes to me at all. Like I've told Shane this on the podcast. Sometimes I have dreams where I'm like looking down on it like a third person, like camera, like I'm watching it play out. And he said he's not had dreams like that. I haven't really talked to anybody that's had dreams like that. And if they have, awesome, send us an email, call in, something, let me know. But I just think that that's where, and then a lot of the times when you listen to, like, this is so fucked up, the Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla podcast, literally their Friday episode, I like refreshed my podcast to download some more yesterday when I was on my way to work. The one they were talking about, one of their callers was calling in to talk about Flat Earth.
Yes.
And we are not connected to that podcast. I didn't have any idea that that's what they were going to be doing. And it's just nuts that I think that we are literally like connected to think, like we sometimes think about the same stuff just because we are connected somehow by our own, like our minds and our brains or like the neurons firing and stuff like that.
Well, I would even say on like a lighter, more like less deep note, like me and you a lot of times, like we joke about how we're not able to like disagree on things. And I don't know if it's just because we have a similar upbringing, we did a lot of similar things as kids, or what it is, but a lot of times whatever standpoint we have on something is usually the same, which is not necessarily good, doesn't make for a good podcast because we're always just agreeing with each other.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's move on to the next one.
I'll just say a bunch of stuff and you'll be like, yeah, me too. And I was like, oh, I was hoping you'd say. So.
But yeah, I just think that we can get really deep on the existence of people and our own existence because
maybe just on a lighter note, we could talk about Collin and the AFL.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And kind of what his road, because he's 7 years.
Yeah.
So it'll be 8 or you go ahead.
Well, let me first say, if I am being controlled, can they stop doing such a bad job? Like, can I get some more money?
Says the guy in the AFL that's completely ripped.
Yeah,
has cool tattoos. Man, like, you're just got dealt the real bad card over there.
Can't I just have like a hot girlfriend and like a nice sports car? And so whoever's in charge, take a note.
Sports car.
But yeah, man, the Arena Football League thing is wild. I played.
How'd you even get started with that?
Yeah, so I played at Indiana University. I went and walked on after playing here locally in the Indianapolis area in Carmel. Went to Indiana University, walked on. Had to be an IU athlete. My sister was an awesome track athlete there. My grandfather was a tennis player at IU, so I had to kind of follow in their footsteps and prove that I'm not the worst athlete in my family because everybody's super crazy talented, and I'm just trying to like keep up with them, right? So I went and I walked on at IU, kind of bounced back and forth, a couple different positions. I was told I was too slow and not strong enough to play receiver.
Oh, wow.
So that off season, all I cared about was that, right?
Yeah.
And this was, I think, my junior year. So I went in and I broke the bench press record for receivers. So at the time, I did 225, 24 times, right?
Holy shit.
So I was the strongest wide receiver of all time. Right, I'm just kind of blowing this thing out of proportion, right?
Yeah. Facts
and
are facts.
I went to this guy who told me, "You're not big, you're not strong enough to block these DBs to make these plays, whatever." I said, "I'm now the strongest wide receiver of all time." Right?
You're kind of like
now what?
You're kind of like the Rudy of IU.
But
maybe not 4 foot tall.
Not 4 foot nothing, 100 and nothing.
I'm just saying, like the better, more.
Probably saw more playing time.
Good-looking version of Rudy.
That's true. I did play a couple more snaps than him.
Did anyone lay down their jersey for you?
No, unfortunately. That's what I'm saying. If I'm being simulated, like have something cool like that happen.
The more we talk about this, the more you're nothing like Rudy. 225, 24 times, Rudy. And then my mind's like, I saw a movie. Like, that's, sorry.
No,
he's associated.
And the reason I bring that up is because I go to this guy who's like, yo, you're not strong enough. You can't play for me, right? So I go to him, I said, I'm now the strongest player ever here, right?
Yeah.
Like, once again, kind of blowing it, but to go to this guy and be like, now what?
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, we're going to switch you to safety. Right. So throws me at safety, a position I've never played.
Yeah.
I switch basically on a Monday. Saturday, I'm a backup safety, backup free safety, at Iowa on Halloween. Jeez. Iowa's 4-0 or 5-0, ranked number 4 in the country. Mm-hmm. And we go out there, and I mean, awesome place to play. Iowa was incredible. And we warm up, all good. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just going to watch this, kind of get the feel of what it's like being a defensive back. You know, that was like basically the first game I'd warmed up as a defensive back. Mm-hmm. And during the national anthem, our starting free safety stands next to me, and he pats me on the shoulder, and he's like, you're up. And I look at my buddy Nick, and I'm like, what are you talking about? He's now in street clothes. Right, so he got hurt during warm-ups and came on. He's like, good luck against the number 4 team in the nation with 60 million people watching. Well, okay, this will be good. Third possession of the game, I come out and get an interception.
Nice.
And it was just like, from there, it was just rolling. Like, we had a big lead. I actually ended up having 2 interceptions, forced a fumble, led the team in tackles. Like, crazy game, right?
I've always thought that there's 2 kinds of people in the world. People that can perform well under pressure, like that just kind of thrive on it, and then people that can't. Because you saying that, like, got an interception, I would have been like on the ground, like rocking like a baby, like, what do you know what I mean?
Man,
like,
you know, it's just like that, and that's what. So I got to do something.
Yeah, right? You got to perform. You got to go out there.
I've been asking for this, so I better do something. Yeah, and I'm playing a really, really good game. We're up 27 going into the fourth quarter. Spoiler alert. Don't beat this number 4 team, Iowa, right? So up 27 in the fourth quarter, they then mount the largest comeback in Big Ten history to beat us in the fourth quarter. Go like 35, I think the outscore is 35, 41 nothing, something like that in the fourth quarter. But come back and win. That next Monday, Iowa was on the cover of Sports Illustrated beating the Indiana Hoosiers. And that would have been me. That would have been me on there, you know, picking these balls off and running. Yeah.
Well, that's almost not saying when you played there, but just in true IU fashion, they do give it up a lot at the end. Like, they'll do so well again. I'm like, oh, we're going to beat Michigan. And then it's like, at the end, like, you know what I mean? Like, and when I was going down there, for those of you who don't know, I mean, you don't even know, I used to do security down there, and I would just stand by that rock down on the field and watch the games, and I got really into it and became a fan of the Hoosiers. But, like, they would always give it up at the end. I don't know if it's when I didn't know you then, so I don't know if it's when you were playing there. But, yeah, man, I mean, I felt for him because I became a huge Hoosier fan while I was working there. Mm-hmm. And that's crazy. The biggest
comeback in Big Ten history.
That's crazy.
You know, that would like that would have been
you're
us.
on the opposite end of it.
At least you got that interception, and then
2.
Okay, 2, and this laid the groundwork for some more things.
Yeah. So and that the reason I tell that story was because I got a phone call a couple weeks later, something like that, after that Iowa game from an Arena Football League coach. Yeah. Who said, hey, man, depending on how stuff works, and I don't even know if this is legal, if they can be talking to me, and I'm I don't know anything.
It's past the point of, I think, what is it, the statute of limitations? Like, we're past that.
Yeah, sure. So I won't say any names. Yeah. So he called me and said, depending on how the stuff works out with the draft in the NFL, if that doesn't work out, would you want to come out here and play in the Arena Football League? And I said, well, sure. I remember watching it when I was younger on Saturday mornings on TV because John Bon Jovi owned a team and he had a team. The people at the Real World on MTV worked for it.
I remember that.
You remember that?
Was it the Soul?
The Soul,
yeah.
So they're still
I do
around.
Remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and so I remember my mom telling me when we were watching it one morning, she said, you need to play arena football so I can meet John Bon Jovi. I said,
"Your mom's great."
I said, you got it.
That's awesome.
If it's the least I can do, I mean,
it's let's do that. So I actually ended up. Draft came and went. Nothing worked out. Had some workouts with some teams, whatever. Nothing really came through. Got a call from this team, asked me to come out and wanted me to play defensive back for him. And I said, I can come work out as a defensive back, but I've played defensive back for 8 games. I've played receiver for 8 years. I said, so let me play receiver for you guys. And he said, all right, you make the team as a defensive back, then we'll give you some shots to play wide receiver. So the first team I made, I made it as a defensive back. I played some scout team receiver, and after a while, they're like, "Oh man, you're a pretty good receiver." And I told you, I don't have any idea. I have no idea how to backpedal, because I just learned it.
Yeah.
And so I made this team. I actually was then signed and released by the same team 5 different times.
Jesus.
Wow. Before I was like, maybe I should give something else a shot. You know what I mean? Like, I had a really, really close friend who was on the team, so that was kind of it. I thought, I got a place to stay. I don't know how this league works. I'm getting cut every Friday and signed every Sunday, so they must like me for some reason. Yeah.
Well, just watching the Hard Knocks thing on, it was HBO or Showtime or whatever it is, you see like the cutthroatness of just like getting the call from the coach and being like, hey, you got to go see coach. Yeah. And then you walk in there like, hey, they either put you on the backup team or the practice squad or whatever. And then they're like, it's just cutthroat, man.
One of the worst things you can do is get a phone call from the coach. You're like, dude, what's this dude? I see him 15 hours a day. Yeah. What's he got to call me now for? What's he want?
And these families picking up and moving to state all across the country just to play for another team, and it may not necessarily work out. It's just like, wow, that's like your whole life is just kind of thrown up in the air in an instance, and then you're like, man, I hope it pans out. If I don't perform well enough, that's the epitome of pressure to me. Like, wow, like you have to go on that field and perform and do well enough, and you could just do like okay and still not be enough. Like you have to go out there and lay it all on the field, and if you don't, you're out of a job or you're on to the next town or whatever. And I don't know if it's the same in arena football, but like that just kind of like was shocking to me when I initially watched that.
Yeah, at any time you can lose your job. You sign a contract, but then you don't play well. I mean, I've seen people get cut over dumb things, not even having to do with playing, which is crazy that they would put themselves in situations to lose their job. It just blows my mind. But those are other stories. But I mean, and I am so lucky because my support system that I had for this is incredible. My parents, we've talked about my parents a couple times. My parents have been amazing. Like, can't imagine being in a better situation than with my parents and my sister and her family supporting me through this whole thing. Because, dude, if somebody would have said, like, yo, you're going to be pretty good, you're just going to have to wait like 7 years. I'd be like, I'm good. I'll just go do something else, And so I had 4. That first season, I was cut by that same team 5 times before I decided, like, okay, I'm better than this, right? I was then signed to 3 different teams. Was cut from those teams before I even played games due to one was a crazy. The team got fined for practicing too many players, so they lost a roster spot and like $10,000. And I was the most recent one signed, so I got cut for it. I went to, my first season I was all over the place. And then I ended up my next year going down to a lower league to play just because it's one of those things. The AFL is a different game, the indoor game. So they want you to have experience, but nobody wants to give you experience. It's one of those.
I mean, that's normal in almost all job-related fields right now.
Which is crazy.
It's just in general, like, because there's been times that, when my wife was first looking for work in the HR field, like literally it was like, hey, we want you to have 5 years of experience and a bachelor's degree, and
where are you supposed to get that experience? Like,
and we want you to have all this stuff before you even start. And it's like, so where is the job that gets me to this job?
Right. Where's the JV team that I can play on for a while, but before I step up to varsity? And so that's I did that, and I played for an awesome coach. Shout out to Chris Thompson, the fake. So I'm the real CT. Yeah. Right. And it started back in 2011 because Chris Thompson was my coach's name, so we call him the fake CT. So I played for the fake CT.
I bet he likes that too.
Yeah. Also, the CT. I always think of the CT from the real world.
Right? Which is another story. Which my buddy partied with CT, and I said, "Listen, dude. I said, listen, you can't say I'm CT, right? He's the fake CT."
Has he called you yet and been like, "Hey, bro, let me get that Instagram name"?
Yeah. Hey, we're gonna have some issues. If he wants to throw me
that's
some
a good
money
investment.
For it,
Dude, that guy is a monster, though. Like, I don't think people realize, like, that guy's just huge. Like I was big into the CT guy.
Yeah, see, I didn't watch that show.
Oh, well, he just like goes on and beats people's asses and like
sounds like a great guy.
He's just but he's like chilled out. But he's like back in the day, he was just insane.
He's a psychopath.
And the perfect example of him, like I don't want to get too far into this, but like they did this thing where they tied. One of the challenges was they tied each other to each other's back.
Yeah,
and you basically have to run and touch this, and he has to run. So you're basically in the
circle. He carried the person, didn't he?
He bent his back over. The guy is a big guy. Like Johnny Bananas was the guy. Okay. And his legs come off.
I can't believe that you know everything.
I don't even tell you, bro.
I know exactly
me and my buddy Mike Kelly be like, oh, bro, did you see that episode of The Real World? Like, it's sad. Okay, that's sad. But he stands up and like he's taller than him, so he just like crouches over and walks the dude over there and then turns around and slams him on the thing purposely. He's just like I don't know. I like the guy.
The real CT does not like that.
Yeah.
No, it's just a fake CT. The real CT has a heart.
Yes.
Cares about people.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing I was going to say is you talk about your family being like such a big support system. I also feel like you have a huge fan/friend support system.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I want to say that you have such a good fan and friend support system is because you are a good guy. You are and we've told this story before. My girlfriend used to work with you, and she was like, CT, this guy, he's bartender, plays in, he's such a nice guy. And then I came to work at Scotty's, and everyone's just like, CT this, CT that. I'm like, God, this guy cannot be this. He's not that great of a person. Like, I'm probably not going to like him. And he just sounds like he put up on this pedestal, and then like a week into working with him, I'm like, damn it, he's such a cool guy. I just want to hang out with him and be around him, like trying to buy these shirts. Like I'm all about it. I'm like his biggest fan. Like that happens to me all the time. I'm like kind of write people off. I'm like, he can't be that cool.
Yeah.
And then he turns out being like, he's modest. He's just a good dude. He's got all this stuff going on football wise, and like, he could be a huge prick if he wanted to,
yeah,
because he's got a lot going on, but he's not. He's down to earth. He treats everybody with respect, and I just kind of I respect him for that.
Yeah, and I think Shane does have a little bit of fandom in him for like a few people. Because
Chris
he was
Heffernan,
the same way with Chris.
And on a serious note, I see people that are doing big things and that are inspirational people, and I just. Same with you. Like, I mean, as much as I haven't said this to you, but like you're doing a podcast, you guys are all out there doing great things. And I want to surround myself with people that are like go-getters and positive people and doing things. And like, I might seem like your biggest fan, but I'm just like really like, I just want to surround myself with people that are like good people for one, and two, that they're like out there getting it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I have no desire to be around whiners, lazy people that don't have any drive. Mm-hmm. And I've found those traits in myself before. Mm-hmm. So like I've been lazy, I've been a whiner, but the whole reason for surrounding myself with people like you guys or Chris Heffernan or whoever, and it's because I just want to be a better person. Yeah. So that's why I chalk that up to.
I mean, you kind of failed with me because I'm not a good person.
I don't know. You, like some of the things that you've told me, like, the fact that you I've never punched anyone, like you're just not a fighter. You're a good, like at the end of the day, you may not think so, but I think you're a good dude.
No, I'm just sneaky about being a bad person.
I think that might be a little true. Just
no, I'm just kidding. But no, I appreciate that, and talking to you about this stuff is like it is inspirational to me because I wanted to play sports, man. That was that was a thing. I went to a small school and thought I was the shit. I went to there was some things when I was a kid that I got to do that I didn't think was as big a deal as it really is when I look back on it. Like my uncle paid for me to go to Michigan State football camp. Like I don't even know what I would think about going now, traveling somewhere, living and staying in a dorm room with a stranger, and then going to do the stuff I did as a kid. I don't understand how I was so cool with it. But then it gave me the opportunity. They kept me back for an extra week because they're it was my junior year of high school, and they were you did really well in these drills and these things that we did. We want to pay for another week of camp, stay and do this. And at the time I didn't really take it seriously. I was I just was having fun. And then I went to school. I made a lot of bad decisions when I was in high school, and I actually got in trouble for drinking and driving my senior year. So what happened is I basically we lost our first game of the year. I was pissed off, but my girlfriend at the time wanted to go to a party. So I was like, all right, we'll go, but I don't really want to go. So I went. Somebody gave me like this memory is so crystal clear. They gave me a coffee cup full of whiskey. Like it was like this, like it was like half full or something like that. And I literally just sipped on that the entire time I was there. I was just like kind of pissed sitting in the corner because like we lost to a team we weren't supposed to lose to. And I drove back and got pulled over by a state trooper that actually knew me, and he was like, hey, come in here. And he like had me get into his cop car, breathalyzed me. I blew .03 or 4, something like that. And he was
automatically, since you're underage.
He was like, automatically, since you're underage. He was like, I'm not going to take you to jail. You're not going to get a record for this, but I got to call your mom. And since, I got lucky that he knows my coaches and he knew everybody, he was like, I got to call your coach, and I expect you to tomorrow go to each one of these people's places and tell them what you did and why you did it and all this stuff. So I went and I told them, and everybody was really cool about it. But the negative part was, from that time on, my coaches like didn't really take me seriously for my senior year, and just kind of like I was kind of in the background of a lot of stuff. And I was actually told at a later date too that my coach had gotten some calls from some schools, nothing like huge, but just got some calls, and he actually told the coaches that were calling that I don't think you could trust him in the dorm room, which I think, to me, isn't that like one of the shittiest things? Somebody that's looking out for you, they should not do that. Even if they believe it, I don't think you should tell somebody that.
Well,
because
he maybe should have came to you and said, like, look, like, you need to get your shit together because I'm getting these kind of calls, and you should have been given a chance. It wasn't his job to like control your fate. Exactly. Which is not cool.
But yeah, not to get too like deep on that stuff, because like I still think about that stuff on a regular basis. But like, it's cool to see somebody doing something like, how Shane's like saying he's a fan of yours. I've followed you on everything. I'm going to be a fan of yours now. And it's just inspirational to see that kind of stuff, because I like being able to talk to people that are doing the thing that they want to do. And it's not every day that you get a chance to talk to people that are doing what they want to do.
And we always kind of talk about how once you step in this room and do the podcast with us, I'm purely saying this off of what he said, and I'm about it too. We become your biggest fan. Anytime you post something, we repost it, and we make sure that everyone that's ever listened to this keeps up to date with what's going on with you and your season and all that stuff. So
and I really appreciate that. Thank you for all those very kind things you said,
man.
By the way. But yeah, you just talk about surrounding yourself with positive people, inspirational people that make you better. And I think that's what you have to do to have any type of
I figured
success.
It out, man. For a while, I was like hanging out with people that just weren't doing anything. Like you go over to someone's house. I hung out with some people in high school, and they would be high or whatever. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but like, we're just not doing anything. We're standing here. We're not doing anything. I want to go out. And that just is a small situation as that, all the way up to people that just have no desire to be great in their life, whether it be, if you're an electrician and you want to be great at that, if I see that, I think that's great, because you're working towards something that you want to be. It doesn't you don't have to be a football player or whatever. The fact that you have goals and that you're like-minded individual that has the same beliefs that I do, and you're working towards something, that's the kind of people I want to surround myself, not like burnouts. And I sound like a high school history teacher, like,
guidance
gosh darn burnouts and, smoking your pot. But
but it's true.
I mean it, and I've gotten to the age, I'm 28 now, and I just kind of like, I'm done surrounding myself with people that don't deserve my time.
Yeah.
So it's fun to be around people that have goals and want to do things in their life and be a good person.
That's a perfect segue into Judgment time, or Judgment Day.
Let's do it.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Judgment Day with Juice
You should
and
see
Shane.
Collin's eyes right now. He's like, what the hell's happening?
But if that doesn't get you jacked up,
So just so it's clear, Sarah Connor, Terminator, you can be T-1000.
Yeah,
all right?
perfect.
So you're basically aluminum alloy. Oh, God, I love the Terminator. Woo!
love the Terminator.
Oh, dude. You got me with that one.
You weren't ready for that, were you?
I was not.
Aluminum alloy.
All right, so the
pepperoni.
the first one that I want to start us off. I saw some people out in public. It was a couple. It was a guy and a girl, and the one guy was wearing a flat bill hat, king, and his old lady, I would assume, was wearing a flat bill hat that said queen. And I'm close enough to where I can smell the aura of stink on these people. So they are smelly.
It's pronounced stank.
Stank. And they were not dressed very clean or nice. So my first thought was that they could possibly be the king and queen of the meth labs in Marion County.
Yep.
But I'm judging them because, first of all, I don't agree with like the king and queen hat. First of all,
no.
Second of all, you're not the king and queen of anything.
Nope. Nope.
So I'm judging these people harshly and thinking, no more of this needs to happen. And if I could tell them that, and they happen to hear this podcast, stop wearing the fucking
I basically
hat.
just want to say the audacity to wear that hat and just be like walking out the door, like, we got this, king, queen. Like, where's your head at? Like,
yeah.
You couldn't. Like, that sounds like I lost a bet and I have to wear that with someone else. Like, and I would just be like embarrassed as all get out to be like, I'm the king. Like this, you know what I mean? Like,
stop wearing that hat.
No.
But that leads me to another like offshoot of this conversation is what are your guys' thoughts on couples and matching? So like actually wearing matching clothes with a couple.
Dude, I'm so annoyed by these people. And I don't even know. I wasn't even there, but I'm sitting here like, oh, stupid hats.
Well, I was telling him before we started the podcast, like if me and Nicole are even both wearing flannel, let alone the same color, like we don't wear if like I got flannel and you got flannel, we're both wearing a vest. We both like our vests. I'm a big vest guy.
I did see the vest.
I got a couple
earlier.
of vests.
You're good at layers.
Yeah. Oh shit, I'm fat, so I got to layer it up. No, but I will just be like, hey, so which one of us is taking this off? Because I'm not going, let alone to wear a hat that says king or queen. And is their kid just like Prince?
The prince or princess?
Or,
no,
yeah.
I didn't see a kid.
And then there's like a little.
Hopefully they're not bringing another kid into
a
this
little
world.
kid that's like not completely all there wearing a jester hat.
Coming with the fire today.
His shirt is his tag along. Rude. I know.
I think there is a time and place for that.
Yeah.
An amusement park.
Yep.
I'll say.
Well, he had a perfect example of when, which I found completely understandable of a time you would wear that.
Yeah. My wife convinced me. It didn't take a lot of convincing because I like funny shirts and stuff like that. But she said she bought these shirts that said hubby or husband and wifey or something like that, and we wore them after we got married on our trip to our honeymoon. And I thought that's okay because we're proud that we got married. We're like, it's funny. Everybody was like, hey, I love your shirts and like stuff like that. So people were nice about it.
Who's to say, devil's advocate here, who's to say those king and queen just didn't get out of the justice of the peace? And they're like, "Hey,
that's true.
We the king and queen now." And
like an awfully racist voice to say this, by the way.
I'm just, okay. He does that a lot. I'm glad somebody else said something.
Any time I can like ghetto it up a little bit. That's not necessarily a racial thing. It's just like I enjoy talking like I.
Well, that even goes to the video you showed me of the chick that was talking super like Ebonics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's up to you.
No, it's all right. But no,
pass.
So we are judging these people. You can judge me if you want, but I think that ours was a good way of going about it. I mean, sometimes you just like happen to throw something on that like color coordinates with somebody.
Yeah, man.
I'm okay with that. I think but if it was like specific outfit, no, I'm not.
I mean, if you're on your way to like a Christmas party, or a Friendsgiving,
Halloween,
like
I agree. Halloween,
would be, and people are thinking, "Oh, that's cute."
Yeah,
I get that. I'm totally on board.
And
with that.
sometimes when people wear things that are so like, I'm not necessarily things that say king and queen or like that, but they wear just like a really like why the hell are you wearing that? Like, you see it all the time. Like, you like, why? But you got to own it. Like, if I were to go out with anything like that on, own it.
Oh, yeah.
You got it. Like, if I'm wearing like pink pants,
You're
I'm
all
like,
in
yeah,
on
bro.
that.
What about my pink pants?
You
What's
know,
up?
It's how you wear it, right?
Yeah.
It's not
And
always what you wear, it's how you wear it.
And like sometimes I see someone, they have something like, not necessarily like, I say this about like a lot of things, like Jordans, like Michael Jordan shoes. I think they're cool. I think they're really cool. I would never wear them, but I think I see them on other people. I'm like, man, that's pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
So what I think is like, if I see someone out and they're wearing something kind of strange that you don't like, usually see, and they're just rocking it and they don't give a shit what people think, I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like I got mad props to that guy, like whatever. But
Just
then
not the king and queen.
No, I'm not gonna lie. You kind of painted a picture for me before about what these people may have looked like, and that's just like they were not owning it, and they were just kind of like
definitely not.
Yeah.
So I want to start with Shane. So Shane, do you have a person that we're going to judge? Because we're definitely judging the king and queen here.
Okay,
Absolutely
so
judged.
I am gonna skip the one that I told you previously and go on to. I'm gonna say at my work I serve some tables, and these people sometimes will completely ignore my existence, and I want to throw some shade or some judgment on them. Because like literally I just kind of get to the point where I get a little tired of the fact that like I go up to a table with their food and I'm plates all on my arms ready to pass out some food, and I'll say like, cheeseburger with french fries, and they'll be like crickets. Like they're talking and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to give you your food right now.
Yeah.
Can you please pay attention to me long enough so I can give you your hamburger? And then last night was a perfect example of something that really drives me crazy. So I dropped off all their food and I said, hey guys, besides ketchup, is there anything else I can get you guys? And the lady looked me straight in the face and said, ketchup. I said, besides ketchup, is there anything else I can get you guys? Yeah, can we get some ketchup? I'm like, oh, are you even listening? Yeah, to and I was like, you don't care about, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm doing a service for you. And another thing is, I'll end it after this, but big pet peeve is, tell me all the things that you want initially. I'll go and I stress, like, hey, is there anything else I can get you guys? And they'll say mayo, and then I'll go, okay, mayo. Anything else I can get you guys? And they'll say ranch, and I'll just keep adding those things until they tell me everything they want, because I get so gosh darn tired of walking and getting ranch and then coming back and they're like, mayo too? And I'm like, okay, go get mayo. I come back like, I need a fork. Like, it's like,
remember when I asked you what you needed?
Like, I don't know if you know this, but like, the kitchen is like 30 yards from here, which is not a big deal. But when I feel like I'm like sprinting back and forth to get them, and I got other stuff going on, orders I got to put in. So
I've been in the service industry, and the saddest part about that whole situation is most of the time those are the people that are the least likely going to leave you a decent tip.
Yeah,
the people that the people that expect the most work tend to give you the least amount for what you did.
And those are the people that we may have talked. People, the world revolves around them. You know, like they're there for them, and they like the fact that they're able to bark out orders and tell people what they want, and then leave a shitty tip at the end of it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, and a lot of it, I like to chalk it up to the game. Like it's part of serving. Like I see other servers that get really bad tips, and they're like, it ruins their whole night.
Yeah.
I get a bad tip, and I just chalk it up to the game. That's part of being a server. It's gonna happen. There's no way around it. So I see it. I'm like a little bummed out, whatever, but I move on, and usually I end up making plenty of money. You know what I'm saying? So
the awareness of people too is what I'm judging, because the fact that they can't get somebody to say something to them and actually process what they said, because when you said that, they weren't even listening. They were thinking about whatever else, God knows what else.
Same with like else. I'm announcing your food so I can give it to you so you can eat it. That's the whole sole reason you came here. Yeah. But you can't listen to me for 1/2 of a second and stop talking about whatever it is that's so damn important. Yeah. To just say, oh yeah, I had that. And like, I've gone to a table of like 8 people and been like, cheeseburger and waffle fries, and they'll all just stare at me like I'm just like you interrupted. Why are you here? And I'm like, oh, you like just to give you your food that you ordered. Yeah. Like, should I come back? I'll put it back on the So that's my judgment today. Is like, as a server, I deal with a lot of stuff, and like I said, a lot of it I just chalk up to the game or whatever. Yeah. But I don't know. I like to throw a little judgment out there every once in a while.
And if you are one of these people, Don't do it anymore.
Stop.
Or lest ye be judged.
And you could have and it would be fun to have an entire podcast talking about
serving,
being in the service industry.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Some of my fondest memories are finishing a shift at a bar at work and then going out and grabbing a couple drinks with your friends who you work and just telling stories about the worst human beings on the planet that you had to serve. Then it's so fun because you have somebody who you can share these stories with, who totally understand it,
exactly,
who get where you're coming from, and probably know the person that you're talking about.
I think when I first started serving, I took things a lot harder because I didn't understand yet why people were doing these things, and that there's just bad people out there.
Mm-hmm.
And now I stay in a good mood. I don't care. You can be mean as you want to me, and I will kill you with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
I will kill you with kindness because I know that it's not my fault you're unhappy with your life and you're being mean to me for no reason and taking whatever it is out of me. And I'm always just very polite and yes, sir, no, sir. I try not to do the ma'am and miss thing because ma'am can be misconstrued as being offensive.
Really?
And my mom, even as one person, she cannot stand when people call her hun or sweetie or anything like that because she's the older. Like, there's too much dynamics in it. But my mom will do this thing where she'll go, the lady will go, what can I get for you, sweetie? And my mom will go, iced tea, sweetie. Like real, I'm like, Jesus, Mom, take it down a notch. And I was like, it's all intentions. Like, she doesn't mean anything by calling you sweetie. Mm-hmm. It's just so I've come to terms with, I know it's stupid, like not a big topic, but like I've come to terms with the fact that people are there's just bad people out there, and mm-hmm. I'm going to give you good service. And I like to think that I won't give you an excuse to give me a bad tip. So I know by the time you walk out those doors, the only reason I got that bad tip was because of you, not because of me, because I gave you great service whether you were a nice person or not.
That was your plan when you came.
Yeah.
No matter what happened, this is where you're going to leave.
CT, what about you? What's Judgement, if you got anything in there for...
And as soon as you guys brought this idea up, this is the first thing that came to mind, and I was thinking you would say something pretty similar, so this is similar, Shane, to your story, but after bartending for... maybe 6-7 years now, and now actually I live in Cleveland full time, and I started bartending weddings. Mm-hmm. And if you guys want to have like the best time ever, bartend weddings. Like I want to tell all my friends in the industry, bartend weddings. Right?
Because I know for a fact that you told me about you got some huge tips, like $1,000 or something crazy like that.
Unfortunately, not that much yet.
Okay.
Yet, but yeah, I mean, everybody's in a great mood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're not paying for anything.
Yeah.
And there's also the biggest thing is I don't have ingredients to drinks that I have to blend up and remember pours and nobody's counting how much liquor you're pouring in this, so nobody's breathing down your throat. I mean, it is so fun. It's so relaxed. I'm just back there vibing.
Yeah.
Actually did a wedding the other day where they had an entire ice bar. Mm-hmm. So it was like an ice luge, but the entire bar.
That's awesome.
So I was just behind the thing, like freezing the whole time.
Yeah.
Like but behind it, like pouring shots down this ice luge. Everybody was having an awesome time.
That's awesome.
Everybody was banged up. Like they were just, and they had this thing from 6 to midnight, right? 6 hours of this ice bar.
And hour one, everyone's trashed. Or even probably before, honestly. I pregame for weddings. I don't know if you guys do, but like...
You have to.
Yeah.
But especially a Catholic wedding. Jesus. I'm going to sit in an hour and a half in a...
You'll get sober by the end.
Yeah,
I'm just like...
you're hungover by the time the wedding's over. But
Is it tomorrow?
We had this 6-hour open bar, right? And then my boss grabs me and he says, "Hey, we're going to need you to bartend the after party."
Jesus.
I was like, there are still people on their feet who like want more booze. So I bartended an after party from midnight to 2:30.
Jeez.
I got home at 4 a.m.
Those people were partiers.
I bet these people were. I mean, I bet some of them were miserable.
Oh,
for the next couple of days. But I mean, it was so fun. So anybody who's bartending currently at a restaurant, try to bartend at least one wedding. It's so much fun. But so what I'm judging coming from that, from the bartender's perspective, is those nights where it's super busy at the bar and everybody's trying to do their best to get to you and get you a drink. Please don't snap or throw your hands up or throw money. That doesn't do anything for us. But when I get there, if you act like it's your first time ever being at a bar, I'm never going to come back to you.
Yeah.
Like,
people don't realize that either. They think
there, what can I get you? And they say, hey man, what do you And you're like, dude, do you see how busy it is?
And you've probably been sitting there waiting for at least 5-10 minutes.
Or the snapping of the fingers and all that. That's evasive. Like, you don't need, like, who thinks going up to a bar, like, all right, my game plan is I'm just going to, like, be as rude as I can be to this guy and he'll get my drink. No, I'm like, I wait till the guy comes up to me, just kind of catches his attention, and I say, like, hey, he'll be like, oh, it's really, I'll be like, yeah, take your time, man. I know you got a lot going on, blah, blah, blah. And I've had people with me like, what's taking so long? I'm like, do you not see these 80 people standing around the bar? Like, come on, man. Yeah.
Slow service, people will say. Yeah, you look at everybody here trying to do the same thing. You know,
and we live in a world with keyboard warriors that can get on Yelp and be like, I went to this place and it was bad.
Yeah, that's definitely somebody that you can judge for sure. Somebody who doesn't know their order, and people that snap, or, the thing that I always have an issue with is, I've worked in the service industry as well, so I understand what it's like.
And shout out to everybody who has, because it is tough. It is a tough line of work. And
I understand going, like, for example, we went to Kilroy's after the Colts game last time I went, and there was like, we were waiting for our carry-out order because we ordered breadsticks literally just so we could take them home. And I was like, I'm standing here for 5 or 10 minutes. I might as well get a beer. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and the audacity that people have to just like push you out of the way. Like, and I'm not a small guy, but I'm also not an aggressive person. So like, if a guy, like, there's just like, drunk people walking in and they just kind of like shove me out of the way, I will, like, not being aggressive, but I will be like, hey, I was right here, man. So,
don't do that.
And most of the time they're just like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get my drink, so you can wait just a minute. And, usually people are pretty cool. I haven't really had a lot of people fight back with me on that very often, but once again, the flip side of the argument is, the bartenders that, like, because if you can keep a good mood even when you're that busy, those are the people I like.
Oh yeah.
The guy that was serving me was like I was like, dude, I'm just trying to get a beer. Like, I just want one beer. Like, well, I apologize that you're busy. Like, but
devil's advocate is like, sometimes the bartender is just like fed up with everyone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I am being nice and waiting my turn, but like, you don't need to be rude to me just because all these other people are like, and I've had that happen to be like, what do you want? Like, they'll just go on me like, what do you want? I'm like, wow, okay, first of all, that's not how you talk to people. And second of all, like, I just want a couple of beers, so it's not, and so it can go both ways, but I get dealing with drunk people all day long.
Yeah.
It is a nice feeling when you go bartend or serve, and the person will be like, I'm a server, and then you're just like, whoo, it's a weight off your shoulders, you're like, I'm good. Like,
somebody I wanted to bring up when you mentioned that is my wife has a couple of friends. They all worked at a restaurant in Muncie when they were going to college, and one of their friends that worked at a restaurant with them is literally the harshest person to their server because she's been a server, so she expects excellence. Mm-hmm. So it's like the flip side of that, where you think they're going to be really good to you. Yeah. She, like, if you are not on it, she's going to like be pissed about it. She's going to like let you know, hey, this is what I expected, and you did not accomplish that.
Do me a favor and never introduce me to that person, because let's go ahead and cut that off.
She is super awesome, super fun, nice person, but like when it comes to her service, like, she expects the service that she would have provided.
Well, something, if she was and I do the same thing in my head. I will maybe say to my girlfriend, like, if this was me, I would have done this, or like, but that's just between me and my girlfriend. I tell my girlfriend everything. We talk about things, but I would never, and even if we get subpar service or even below, I still give them 20%. Because 9 times out, you don't know, like, I just give them 20% because they probably, even though they gave bad service, they probably deserve the 20%. Yeah. They're in the business, they're doing something like that's stressful, and you don't know what they got going on. You don't know if they and the thing that's helped me is, I'm so honest with my table, it's stupid. I go up to him and I'm just like, hey, like, I've gone up to my table before, like, hey, I forgot to put your food in. I'll get you some chips and salsa while you wait. I'm really apologize it. And they respect that way more than, like, if I go up to them like, yeah, the kitchen messed up all your food, and they really didn't. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I just make excuses, no one likes that. But when you go up to them and just straight tell them, like, hey, I screwed up, I'll get that stuff out to you as soon as I can. They respect that, and I usually get a pretty decent tip from doing that. I mean, I try not to screw up a lot, but when I do, I just let them know, and they respect that.
So basically, from this judgment session that we've had, be a good person.
Yeah. Don't wear stupid clothes.
If you wear stupid clothes, rock them.
Yeah, just own it.
Own it. And
make sure you're on your way to your post-wedding
or some kind of event where
plans.
it would,
Something that it would make sense.
Yeah. Like if you're gonna wear a poncho, you better be going
expecting rain
to a rainstorm. Yeah. I don't know. That's all I got.
Yeah. So, it was great having you on. Where do people find you, like on social media and stuff like that? And like, I don't think we've ever even actually said where you played at. I know you said Cleveland, but what's the team and all that stuff?
Yeah. So currently, we're Arena Football League's at a funny spot, kind of trying to rework contracts and stuff right now. So contractually, I have not signed anywhere to play. But all that stuff will hopefully come over the next couple weeks. But I played the last 4 seasons in Cleveland for the Cleveland Gladiators. Dan Gilbert's our owner, the guy who owns the Cleveland Cavaliers and the city of Detroit. And so they're awesome. Our front office team and everybody who works with us is awesome because we get to do a lot of really cool things. Just being a part of the Cavs when we had a float at the dang NBA Finals.
That's awesome.
Parade that they did, right? Where Cleveland was packed with like 6 billion people, I think was the number. We got to go around on the float and high five and stuff.
Awesome.
So they're awesome. So I played the last 4 years with Cleveland, spent a couple times, couple years in Iowa, kind of bounced around. The idea was always when I started was to get as close to home as possible. So I started about 16 hours away in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and then got a little closer when I went to Philly, a little closer in Iowa, and now I'm close enough to pretty close to my backyard.
That's nice.
So about 4.5 hours away in Cleveland, being from Indianapolis. So that's awesome. So I've been there for the last 4 years. Actually spent a couple months last year playing in China in the first ever Chinese Arena Football League.
We forgot to bring that up.
Where I was
That's
representing
crazy.
the city of Beijing, and my team, really super talented team. We had 21 guys. 10 of them were American, or they called us foreign players, and then 11 of them were domestic Chinese players. And I mean, it was such an awesome experience.
Question that popped into my head: did you have anybody on your team that was like a sumo wrestler? Or is that Japanese? Japanese?
So that's Japan. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was brought up. There were some monsters though. Okay.
And I'm glad I caught that, because then I just sound ignorant when I'm like getting the two mixed up. Like, I don't know. But
but it was awesome. So I have conversations literally every day with people who don't speak any English, which is cool. So a year later, still talk to these guys. And so I was able to do that. Arena football has taken me the craziest places I've been, and we didn't even talk about. I've been in 5 major motion pictures.
That's something I really wanted to get into.
Talking these movies all through, just basically.
We're gonna have to get you back on then for sure.
Yeah, that'd be, because I got
just a short list of
stories.
Some extras. You've been in some movies.
The Dark Knight Rises was the first one we did.
That's fucking awesome.
So with the scene where like Bane and the whole the whole stadium
team
is like collapsing within itself. So
I'm on the field. I'm running down for that. We did Focus the next summer, and
awesome.
the Will Smith, Margot Robbie, Collin Taylor movie Focus.
Collin Taylor movie. I love it.
Yeah, I was like in the there's a scene, the football scene where he wins all that money from guessing the number 55. I was on the field for a couple plays. I go in motion back and forth a couple times, but then I'm standing right behind the coach when he has the conversation. So that was fine. I didn't expect to see that, and we were watching that, and I saw myself on the
that's crazy. Freaking crazy.
Look at that guy.
That's awesome.
And then have done a couple smaller films. We did Woodlawn a couple years ago, which ended up being an international release. Pretty cool. It was a Christian based film. And that was really well done. That was excellent. And then just got back from Memphis. We were shooting a movie called The Brian Banks Story, which was actually directed by the guy who did Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, Accepted, like a ton of really big time movies.
Comedy movies.
And this guy's got an incredible story. Let me just say real quick about this guy.
Yeah.
He was a multimillionaire director, big time Hollywood director, right? 10 years ago, he kind of told us the short story. He almost died, right? So he woke up like out of this coma, and he switched his mind. He said, you know what? He said, I don't want this money. This doesn't help. I could have died, right? So he sold everything he had. He moved into a trailer, and now he only shoots feel-good movies where he can tell people stories.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Like this dude talked to Jim Carrey. He's very close with Jim Carrey, very close with Morgan Freeman. Was a big time director, and now he's
Jim Carrey also took a similar route with the whole like giving up on. He's very like out there is one of my best. A lot of the stuff he says sounds a little crazy, but I can like agree with a lot.
Yeah.
I can relate with
Yeah.
it a lot. So, but yeah, that's you never see people like have a near death experience and decide that they want to be real rich and like you know what I mean. Like it's always people that like they kind of become more like simple in terms of what they want with their life when they have an experience like that, and they have a very clear like they want to do something very like good, as opposed to a lot of people don't like almost die and then they're like I want to
start doing cocaine off strippers'
I want to
asses
be
and stuff like that.
I want to be a drug lord now.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, so that guy was incredible. Brian Banks, who the story is about, he was on set the whole time. Brian Banks, his story was he was falsely accused of rape and spent 10 years in jail. 10 years later, the woman came out and said that he didn't do it.
Wow.
And so so he kind of lost all his hopes and dreams. He was a big time recruit, big time football player coming out of high school. Ended up being in jail for 10 years, and then this lady come out and said it, and the Atlanta Falcons gave him a shot. Anyway, he was a super great guy.
Awesome,
so was able
man.
to do that. That was a blast. And we've done some TV shows. We did Ballers. We did
Awesome.
That's so cool.
some like a lot of stuff in Atlanta. We're on The Game. That's on BET. So just like gotten to do a lot of really super cool stuff.
That's awesome.
Just from still playing, being able to still play football.
You
So-
lead a pretty like you were kind of making it sound not as cool earlier, but you live like a pretty extravagant.
Yeah,
like,
I
you're
am
lucky.
super-
You're a lucky dude.
I'm super lucky.
Yeah.
And I make sure never to take that for granted because I understand.
Of course, yeah.
I could have taken other paths many, many different times, but
Yeah.
like going back to friends and family and everybody who supported me through the whole thing, I've been able to, continue doing this.
Having a
And
good support system is probably
huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
90% of it, or
but back to the social media stuff. Instagram at the real CT, like we've talked about,
Nice.
not, as opposed to don't listen to the fake ones. They're out there. Don't
literally
listen to them.
at the real
CT.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on Facebook, of course, Collin Taylor. There's a athlete page that I'm on more
Nice.
than personal page. Collin Taylor. I think it's the real CT athlete page. And then. What else? Twitter at Collin_Taylor, which I'm having a lot more fun with Twitter now since I started to wake up like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Because you can send some tweets, dude, and it blows people's mind. Like friends will text you, be like, "Dude, you are nuts."
I literally
what is
only
that?
follow like MMA fighters
Yeah.
and conspiracy theorists and like Joe Rogan, and that's all. And I'm
Yeah.
just like reading that stuff. I don't ever retweet anything. I just kind of look at the stuff.
Yeah.
But
So I'm a big fan of Twitter.
he's big into Twitter.
Yeah. It's at Juice in the AM. Everybody knows it.
Mine's don't care.
Yours, is yours the one with like all the underscores?
It's I realized that I told you the wrong thing because it's different than my Instagram, but it doesn't. Don't worry about it because it's like I don't get on there. I don't do anything on Twitter, which I will maybe eventually, and I'll start plugging it. But until then, Shane _Uriah URIAH at Instagram on Instagram.
Yeah, and once again, thanks for doing the show. I think it's one of my favorite things to do, and it's awesome that Shane got a friend of his that is an interesting and fun person to talk to. But what's the sign off now, Shane?
Oh, well, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and hopefully the juice was worth the squeeze.
That's awesome. That's good. But thanks for doing it. See you guys.
Juice in the morning.